The least appreciated aspect of video games might be the act of playing them. We're quick to reward the best graphics, presentation, performances, music or sound effects, but we rarely if ever celebrate how great interfaces uplift the whole experience. It makes sense as those former elements shine through in screenshots and video, whilst it's difficult to gauge how great a game feels without having it in your control. But that tactility separates the medium from passive art like film or television, and even physical work like theatre, sculpture or glass. So in honour of this oft-overlooked art, I'd like to recommend a demo that won me over entirely through the magic of its interface design. Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop is, in the words of its developers, a roguelite spaceship repair simulator. In the role of a four-eyed, fox-headed humanoid, the goal is to make enough rent to survive another round, done by fixing up fleets of spacefaring sloops. The adventure is set against the backdrop of a backwards meteorite, rendered in an anarchic tone and adult animated aesthetic. Between jobs, you'll mingle with caustic co-workers, spend spare change on new machines, and even uncover satanic secrets. Going purely on its passive qualities, Uncle Chop might not be to everyone's tastes. Although it's not my place to make suggestions, it wouldn't be difficult to tune this adventure for a wider audience by dropping the game's few edgelord swears. But these elements, for better or worse, are gestalt with the game's greatest achievements. Initially, Uncle Chop sliced quickly to my heart because of its focus on interfaces. The act of diagnosing and repairing spaceship components is transformed into a toyetic experience, one that, like the best PC and phone applications, take a simple pointer interface and turns it into skeuomorphic spelunking. There is the immediate fun of pushing buttons, flicking switches, and tuning dials as expected. And despite being set in science fiction, the developers here have done their best to give each of these alien components an intuitive design. But it's when these interactions overlap and build processes that Chop becomes a cut above. The mundane act of an oil check and change becomes a satisfying sequence of undoing screws, flipping pegs, and shuffling out clean and dirty oil, all conducted through clicks, drags, and taps. As difficulty mounts, sometimes these checks aren't so simple, requiring the hood to be opened to inspect components for fractures or failures. For those of you that have never popped a bonnet, this can sound daunting, and at its harshest, Uncle Chop certainly can be. Although there is a constant repair manual to RTFM at any point, time is a premium you can't always afford. That infamous roguelite difficulty mounts when fidgety microgames are done under the clock, requiring a good job done in good time for good pay. I initially wasn't fond of how Chop's roguelite design encouraged multiple failed runs to be taken as a learning experience to figure out the basics. Fortunately, the developers were aware enough to include a timeless mode to figure out these components and overcome challenges without that initial threat at the buzzer. But once you've mastered the maneuvers, it's worth switching the timer back on to add a little hot sauce to the experience. It's that interface design that got me to appreciate all aspects of Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop. The goofy but gruff sense of humour, alien aesthetics, and even that roguelite roughness are what uplifts its already great gameplay. There is a sort of permadeath that threatens progress, and permanent changes that reflect in future rounds. But Rocket Shop stretches the definition of the roguelite for the better. It's like WarioWare, in that you can never expect what's coming up, but through repeat play you'll be equipped for whatever outer space burps up. The same few checks and processes repeat across components, and you'll feel like a real grease monkey when intuition eventually takes the wheel. Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop's demo teases some stranger places for this adventure to go, and I'm keen to see if the developers can pay that off. Although I've done my best through video footage and my writing to promote Uncle Chop, its virtual tactility elevates it above games with better graphics, writing or sound. And for that reason, it really needs to be played.